The last thing my brother said to me, before he walked up to the microphone, was, "Try not to embarrass yourself tonight." He smiled when he said it. The kind of smile that's been practiced so long it doesn't feel like cruelty anymore, it just feels like weather. I sat at table 9, in the back corner of the reception hall, between my mother's cousin I hadn't seen in 12 years and an empty chair where my +1 would have been if I'd had one. The centerpiece was white peonies and eucalyptus. The lighting was warm and golden. My brother's new wife looked genuinely happy. I remember thinking that, and feeling something complicated about it. I was holding a glass of champagne I hadn't touched, when he leaned into the microphone and said, "I want to take a moment to thank the people who got me here." He thanked his college roommate. He thanked his business partners. He thanked my mother and my father, who stood up from the head table and put their hands over their hearts like they were watching a flag get raised. He thanked his wife's family. He thanked people I had never heard of. And then he said, "And to everyone who believed in me when it wasn't easy, you know who you are." He raised his glass. I know who I am. I am the one who wired $11,400 into his business account at 11 o'clock on a Tuesday night because payroll was due the next morning and he had called me crying. I am the one who co-signed a $220,000 SBA loan because the bank wouldn't approve him a loan and he said, "It's just paperwork, you won't even know it's there." I am the one who covered the gap on his commercial lease 3 separate times, who paid his accountant's invoice when he forgot, who talked him off ledges I wasn't even supposed to know existed. He did not say my name. Not once. I want to be honest with you right now before I tell you what happened next, because I think it matters. I want you to understand why I did it. Not to make you feel sorry for me, I am past needing that, but because the comment I hear most, from people who hear stories like mine, is why didn't you just stop? And I think that question deserves a real answer. My grandmother, my mother's mother, the one my mother named me after she died when I was 26, she left me a little over $90,000. Not a fortune, but more than I had ever had, in one place at one time. And 3 days before she passed, when I was sitting with her in the hospice, and the room smelled like hand lotion and something else I couldn't name, she took my hand and said, "You are the steady one. You always were. Don't let them forget that family is the only thing that doesn't leave." I was 26. I had just started my second job in corporate finance. I believed her. So when my brother started his logistics company 2 years later, and it started bleeding money almost immediately, and when my parents called and said he just needs a little help getting stable, I thought about what she said. I thought about it every single time. I thought about it when I moved $8,000 one spring to cover an equipment lease he'd defaulted on. I thought about it when I co-signed that loan, which was not just paperwork. I thought about it for 6 years. I want you to know that before the toast, before the white peonies and the eucalyptus and the empty chair next to me, before I tell you what happened after he put the microphone down, I want to ask you something. What time is it for you right now, and where are you watching from? Drop it in the comments. I read every single one. My brother's name is not what I'll call him here. What I'll call him is what he always called himself in every pitch deck, every email signature, every LinkedIn post, founder and CEO. That's how he introduced himself at parties. That's how he introduced himself at our cousin's graduation. That's how he introduced himself, once, to my dentist, when we happened to be in the same waiting room. I had been quietly doing the math for about a year before the wedding. It started the way a lot of things start, with a spreadsheet I made because I couldn't sleep. I was 31. It was February. I had just gotten off a call with a lender who had left me a voicemail asking about a payment schedule tied to a loan with my social security number on it that I had not thought about in 18 months. I hung up and sat at my kitchen table, and I opened a new document and I started writing down dates and amounts. I did not do it to build a case. That is important. I did it because I had been feeling a weight I could not explain, and I thought if I saw the numbers I would feel better. I did not feel better. The total, when I added it all up, transfers, cosigns, lease gaps, the accountant invoice, the insurance payment I'd covered because he'd let the policy lapse for 6 weeks, came to a number that I sat with for a very long time without moving. It was not $185,000. It was more. It was the kind of number that, when I saw it, I thought, That is a down payment on a house. That is my grandmother's inheritance plus 5 years of saving plus the bonus I got the year I made director. I did not cry. I want to tell you I did, because it would make more narrative sense. But I didn't. I just sat there, and I felt something go very still inside me. Like a room that has been noisy for years, suddenly going quiet. I called my best friend. She is a paralegal, and she is the person who, when I explain a situation, gives me exactly the information I need and no more. I told her what I had found. She asked me 3 questions. Then she said, "You know what you need to do." I told her I did. I did not confront my brother. I did not call my parents. I did not send an email or write a letter, or schedule a family meeting. What I did was spend the next 7 months making sure that every dollar I had ever moved for him was documented: bank statements, wire confirmations, text messages where he had asked me for the money, and I had said yes, emails where he had asked me to handle something, and I had handled it. And in that same 7 months, I had 1 meeting with a bank officer and 1 meeting with a contract attorney. The bank meeting was about the $220,000 loan. The one that was not supposed to be anything more than paperwork. The attorney meeting was about what it would take to remove my name from the co-signer position and whether the business had enough assets to support a refinance into his name alone if the right conditions were met. By October, 11 months before his wedding, the refinance had gone through. His business partner, the one my brother had brought on specifically to help stabilize the company, had agreed to step in as the sole guarantor. I had facilitated the conversation. I had been, once again, the person in the background making something difficult become possible. My name came off the loan documents on a Thursday. I went home, made dinner, watched half a movie, and went to sleep. My parents did not know. My brother did not know. He had been told the bank required a restructure due to a routine compliance review, which was true. What he had not been told was that the compliance review had been initiated at my request. None of this is what I thought about during the toast. During the toast, I thought about my grandmother. I thought about what she meant when she said family is the only thing that doesn't leave. I had spent 6 years taking that to mean that I should never leave. It occurred to me, sitting at table 9, that she might have meant something else entirely. That she might have meant the people who would leave, they were never really family to begin with. He put the microphone down. The room applauded. His new wife kissed him on the cheek. My mother dabbed at her eyes with a cocktail napkin. My father caught my eye across the room. He had the look he always had when there was a moment where he knew I had been overlooked, and he was deciding whether to acknowledge it or let it pass. He let it pass. He looked away and picked up his fork. I stood up. Not because I had planned to, not because I had rehearsed anything or had a speech prepared. I stood up because something I had been carrying for 6 years had just finished. I walked to my brother's table. His new wife looked up at me with the kind of open, warm expression that told me she did not fully know what she had married into yet. I hoped that would change. I said congratulations, I meant it. Then I turned to my brother. He was smiling. Still, the practiced smile. I said, "I have something for you. A wedding gift." I had an envelope in my bag. I set it on the table in front of him. He picked it up, looked at it, looked at me. I said, "It's a summary of what the last 6 years looked like, from my end." My mother appeared at my shoulder from nowhere, the way she always appeared at moments of tension, as if she had a radar for scenes. She said quietly, "This isn't the time." I said, "I know. That's why it's all in writing." My brother's smile did not change, but something behind it did. I watched his eyes go from me to the envelope and back to me. He said, "What is this?" I said, 6 years of transfers, loan documents, lease payments, and wire confirmations. Dates, amounts, account numbers. Everything I've done that no one's included in any toast. The table had gone quiet. The people immediately around us had gone quiet. The reception hall was still doing what reception halls do: music, conversation, the clink of glasses, but our little corner had a different atmosphere now. My father had materialized too. He said, "Let's not do this here." I said, "There's nothing to do. I'm not asking for anything. I just thought it was time everyone had the full picture." My brother put the envelope on the table. He did not open it. His smile was gone now, and what replaced it was something I recognized. It was the expression he had when he was recalibrating, deciding which angle to take. He had three. I had watched him use all three my entire life. The first was charming deflection. The second was wounded confusion. The third was controlled dismissal. He chose the third. He said, "I don't know what you think you've documented, but $220,000 loan," I said. "Your name. Originally co-signed by me. The co-sign was released 11 months ago. Your business partner is the sole guarantor now." I paused. The business doesn't have enough collateral to survive a full call on that note. I thought you should probably know I know that. The room was very quiet now. He looked at my father. My father looked at the envelope. My mother put her hand on my arm and said something about a private conversation. I let her steer me back, because I had already said what I came to say. I didn't need drama. I had the documentation. I did not leave the reception right away. I went back to table 9. I finished my champagne, which had gone warm. I talked to my mother's cousin about her daughter's new job in Nashville. I ate the salmon. When the dancing started, I found my brother's new wife, and I told her that I was glad he had found someone who made him happy, and I meant that too. The same way you can mean two true things that seem to contradict each other. I left at 9:15. He called me the next morning. I let it go to voicemail. His message was long. I will not repeat all of it, but the center of it was this. He was not in a position to repay anything. The documentation I was referencing was from years ago, and circumstances had changed, and I was weaponizing family history to ruin what was supposed to be the most important day of his life. He had opened the envelope. My mother called me an hour later. She said, "You humiliated him in front of his wife's family." I told her I had handed someone an envelope and said congratulations. She said that was not the point, and I agreed it wasn't. The point was 11 months of paperwork. My father did not call. That surprised me more than anything else. I did not call him either. I waited. That is a thing I have learned how to do, in the last few years. Not out of calculation, exactly. Out of something closer to knowledge. I know how these things move. I know the shape of what comes next. What came next took 6 weeks. The business my brother had been running for 8 years had been in slow-motion trouble for most of that time. The logistics sector had compressed margins that it had not recovered from after a rough stretch a few years back, and he had expanded at exactly the wrong moment. New warehouse space, new staff, a rebranding that cost more than it should have. The loan was not the only weight on the structure. It was just the most significant one. When the lender initiated an audit routine, triggered by the restructure, it exposed a cash flow issue that had been papered over for 2 years. His business partner, who was now the sole guarantor, called me. I want to be accurate about what I felt when he called. I did not feel triumphant. I did not feel the warm glow of justice the way you might imagine it. I felt tired, mostly. Tired in a way that has nothing to do with sleep, and everything to do with having carried something for a long time and finally putting it down. His business partner said, "I think you knew this was coming." I said, "I knew the structure wasn't sound." I told him that in 2021. There was a pause. He said, "He's going to say you set this up." I said, "He can say whatever he wants. I have documentation." I said that a lot in the months that followed. I became, briefly, a person defined by that phrase. I have documentation. For my mother, who asked why I would do this to our family. For the aunt who called me on behalf of my parents, to ask if there was any way to resolve this quietly. For the one conversation I had with my father, in the parking lot of a grocery store we happened to both be in which he asked me, with genuine bewilderment, how I had become someone capable of this. I told him. I became it while he was looking the other direction. The business closed in the spring. The assets were liquidated. His business partner absorbed a loss that I genuinely felt bad about. He was not the architect of the situation, and I had one conversation with him, later, in which I tried to say that. He was gracious about it. More gracious than I would have been. My brother and his wife moved into an apartment. I heard this from my mother, during a call that was ostensibly about whether I would be coming to Thanksgiving. I said I was planning to. She said that was good. Neither of us acknowledged the thing living in the air between us. I went to Thanksgiving. I want to tell you what that was like, because I think it is the part of the story people expect to be explosive, and it was not. It was a 4-hour meal in my parents' house, with my brother and his wife, and 2 cousins, and an uncle who talked about football for 90 minutes without stopping. My brother and I spoke twice, once when I arrived, once when I was leaving. Both times it was one sentence. Both times it was civil. His wife found me in the kitchen while I was helping clean up. She said, "He told me some of what happened." I said I assumed he had. She said, "I don't know the whole thing." I said that was probably fine. She looked at me for a moment and said, "He's different since everything fell apart." I don't know if different is better yet. I told her that was an honest thing to say. She nodded. She handed me a dish towel. I have not fully repaired things with my parents. I want to be clear about that because stories like this often end with a bow, and that has not been my experience. My mother and I talk on the phone, maybe twice a month. My father and I are more careful with each other than we used to be. Whether careful becomes something warmer over time, I don't know. I am not ruling it out. What I have is this. I have my finances back. I have my name off every piece of paper that was not supposed to be there. I have a spreadsheet that I don't need to look at anymore but know I can. I have the knowledge that for 6 years I was the foundation of something, and I am no longer that foundation, and what I built for myself in the space that opened up my own apartment, a promotion I had been too distracted to pursue, a savings account that is finally growing in the right direction that is mine. No one else's name on it. My grandmother said don't let them forget that family is the only thing that doesn't leave. I have thought about that a lot. Here is what I think she meant, when I give her the most charitable interpretation I can. She meant that love, real love, is supposed to be the constant, the steady thing, not one person quietly subsidizing everyone else while standing in the back corner of every room. She was the steady one in her own family. I know that now. In a way I didn't when she said it. She was the one who held things together and was thanked for it afterward, in the way you thank furniture by using it without noticing it's there. She did not mean for me to become that. I think she would have understood why I did what I did. I think she might have done it sooner. The first page of that envelope, the one my brother picked up at his wedding reception table, under the warm gold lights, between the white peonies and the eucalyptus, the first page was a single sheet. It listed 6 years of dates in chronological order. No editorializing. No accusations. Just dates and numbers, and the names of institutions. He had turned pale before he got to page 2. I had not made the document to wound him. I had made it because I needed to see it clearly myself, and because once I saw it clearly I thought he should too. I thought everyone should. Not to perform pain in front of an audience, but because things that are true do not require an audience to be true. They just require someone, at some point, to stop pretending they aren't. I stopped pretending on a February night at a kitchen table with a laptop and a very quiet apartment and a number that I sat with until it settled into me. There is a thing people say about revenge, that it doesn't make you feel better. And in my experience, that is sometimes true, and sometimes it misses the point entirely. Because what I did was not revenge in the way people picture revenge. I did not blow anything up. I did not post anything publicly. I did not call his clients or his vendors or his wife's family. I handed someone an envelope. I made sure my name was not attached to a debt that was never mine to carry. I told the truth in a room where it had been absent for a long time. Whether that made me feel better is not really the question I sit with now. The question I sit with is simpler. It is this. If I had done it sooner, if I had made the spreadsheet at year 1 instead of year 6, what would my life look like? I am not saying this with regret, exactly. More like curiosity. The particular curiosity of someone who has just figured out a road existed that they did not know about. I am 33 now. I sleep well. I don't check my phone when I wake up anymore to see if there's something on fire somewhere that has my name on it. I keep the documentation in a folder on my computer that I have not opened in months, and knowing it is there feels less like a weapon and more like a fact. The kind of fact you carry quietly and calmly, the way you carry your own name. My brother called me in January. Not about the business. Not about the envelope. He called because he had found a video on his phone, an old one, from maybe 10 years ago, of the two of us at a lake somewhere in Georgia with our grandmother. She is laughing at something, one of us said. I don't remember what. He texted it to me first without any words. And then he called. We talked for 22 minutes. We did not talk about the loan, or the toast, or the envelope, or the parking lot conversation with my father. We talked about the video. We talked about the lake. We talked about her. I am not telling you this to make you feel better about how it ended. I am telling you because it is true, and because the truth of it does not erase the other truth, it just exists alongside it, the way most things in a real life do. Nothing was erased. Nothing was forgiven in a clean cinematic way. But 22 minutes on the phone, talking about a woman who told me to be the steady one, who I think would have wanted the steadiness pointed inward eventually, that was something. I don't know what comes next. I know what I have. And for the first time in a long time, what I have is only mine,